listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
And welcome to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN. I'm your host, Dave Ross, alongside our GM, Mark Dominik. And Mark, boy, since we spoke on Monday, a lot of changes in the hierarchy of the NFL. 2 new head coaches have been hired in New York and Chicago. We'll get to that. There are still 4 other openings right now, and front office tentacles going back and forth here. So, wow, it's getting crazier, as we thought maybe by now we'd be all wrapped up with the musical chairs. We're not even close, it doesn't seem like right now. The Bears get their guy, and Ben Johnson felt like the number one commodity out there, consensus. This was the guy to get. What do you make of that? First-time head coach, Caleb Williams seems very happy about this hire. Is this the home run hire that everybody in Chicago is banking on?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's hard not to be excited about Ben Johnson being your head coach based off of all the production he's had in Detroit. Now, there's a lot of good players in Detroit. I mean, Ryan Poles, the general manager there, certainly, I don't think he has Detroit's roster, and that's what they've got to work on. They've got to work on that offensive line. They still have to work a little bit more across the board on that football team, but it is a great hire for the Bears. I mean, it's a guy that's going to – all the players are going to come in super confident, uber confident in offense that they're going to be able to get the ball moving, that they're going to be able to be what they want to be in terms of the production that you're looking for in these offenses right now that we want to see in the National Football League. High scoring, let's go, shootouts, 30-plus, you know that. So how do you not get excited about Ben Johnson being the head coach when you realize all the things he's going to bring? So, again, I'm sure Bears, teammates are calling other Bear or Lions teammates going, what's it like? What's he been like? And all that back behind the scenes. It's a big piece of the puzzle. I mean, you get the offensive coach. I talked a lot about that. We talked a lot about that, Dave, in terms of finding Caleb Williams' person, but then finding that person that can stay with Caleb Williams for years. And so now we get to see that combination. And, I think it feels like Ryan Poles has the right head coach here. Hopefully they have the right quarterback still. We'll still get to see another, offseason. That's the unique thing here right now. Caleb Williams, thankfully, isn't worried about the combine or having to meet clubs, but he is having to learn a new system. But it's a system I think he's going to be excited to learn. A system that we've all got to watch over the last couple of years really come together. And so I think it's a really strong hire for the Chicago Bears. I think there's a lot of good defensive coordinators out there and available, so I think he'll be able to put together a pretty good staff here. And it's good. It's good timing to try to get your head coach in place before next week when, we're a lot of scouts and players and people are heading over to East West. A lot of scouts and players and some coaches head over to the Senior Bowl. So it's a busy next week. More staffs aren't going to those in terms of coaching staffs, but you still got to put your staff together. And you got to look at the staff that you had there in Chicago. What do you want to keep? What do you want to let go? But big news out of Chicago. Certainly Ben Johnson feels like he should do a great job because he was the head coach on offense. By all accounts, a great dude.
Here's the deal, Mark. And I was there in Chicago when this happened, when Matt Nagy was brought over from Kansas City. Right, he was replacing John Fox, and it was the old regime that had drafted Mitchell Trubisky. And I remember these conversations like they were yesterday. Oh, are you coming in to be the coach of 52 and 1 or all 53? Now, Ben Johnson did say that Caleb Williams played a big part in his decision to take this over. You can't just be the coach of the one of Caleb Williams. And it almost felt like that cost Matt Nagy his job with Mitchell Trubisky. That won't be the same fate here, will it? Is it all conducive to, if I can get the most out of Caleb Williams, then you're getting the most out of Ben Johnson?
Yeah, I think both those are coincide. And I think it's important that Ben obviously felt that way. I think he had a lot of options in front of him. And clearly Ben Johnson believes in Caleb Williams and believes in the potential of what he can be or what he will be in the National Football League. And that's everything you want to hear. If you're Ryan Poles, if you're the Bears, if you're the McCaskey family, that's what you want to feel. You want to feel a guy that's really invigorated about the first pick overall in the draft, that sees potential and progress, maybe even in his rookie campaign, which you kind of felt, but there was times where he felt like he was up and down. Now he's going to get somebody that's stable, who's done this before. It depends on the defensive coordinator, but certainly Ben Johnson isn't just coaching the Caleb Williams. Whatever production you can get out of him is going to be part of the entire offense. And we've seen that again in Detroit, that, that's been something that they've really focused on in terms of developing players in each room that they're in. So the tight end room's getting better. The wide receiver room got better. The running back room certainly got better. So O-line really played well. So, again, it is about your assistant coaches you hire, but I think Ben is there to certainly fix one side of the ball. And I have a feeling, he'll be the head coach, but I have a feeling he might lean on somebody a little more experienced, maybe on the defensive side, just to make sure that you can, feel like that's okay. I don't have to worry about that right now. I can really focus on the offensive side and make sure we can get this thing ramped up.
They were hearing rumors, and maybe that's Dennis Allen. That could be that guy. We'll figure out if that is, in fact, the new DC there. But that would make sense to your point, right? Let's bring in a guy that's been there, done that, as a head coach, maybe just to handle that defense, to let Ben really focus on that offense before you kind of grow into the role like Sean McVay did, if we're being honest, right, in L.A., where he was brought on to be the offensive guru. He kind of grew into that head coaching role, right? That's something you'd want to see. It does take time. That doesn't happen overnight.
No, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a little bit of time, but it is nice that there are some really good names out there that could be defensive coordinators if they don't get head jobs. There's I think quite a few opportunities to kind of look at guys that have had experience and certainly could bring them in. So I think you got to act fairly quickly here. So it's finding out if this is the right fit for that coach, because it's hard to come from a head coach down to a coordinator. But yet it's still great to be a coordinator in the National Football League. It's a hard job to get in the first place. But if you can get that person that's had the experience, it just takes a lot of pressure off the team, as long as you believe. And for Ben, it's what system do you believe in? Why do you believe in that type of system? And talk to me a little bit about personnel and how you want to be involved. I've known Coach Allen for a long time. Have lots of conversations with him about football. I think he'd be a great hit for somebody if they can pull him in.
The Jets, it's kind of almost the direct opposite situation that Ben Johnson's going to in Chicago, right? Because we don't know who the quarterback's going to be in New York, but we know that Aaron Glenn's going to be the new head coach of the Jets, of course, former DB there. And we all remember, for people of a certain age like myself, we remember Aaron Glenn, the player for the JT, etc. A really good player, by the way. Now he's going to be the head coach. We don't know about whose quarterback's going to be. We don't know who the GM's going to be. Like, Mark, is that a good way to start if you're Aaron Glenn? Like, great, you're coming home, but who's the guy that's above me, and who's the guy that's going to be running my offense?
Yeah, I think it's good. You got to get the right people in place, and if it's a different order than the norm, if it's head coach before the GM or GM head coach, it all works together. A lot of people ask me a long time, like when I was general manager, they're like, well, who had final say? And I'm like, you know what? In theory, I had final say, but that's not how it works. Like, you sit with your coaching staff, you sit with your coordinators, you sit with position coaches. You're trying to make sure that the person you're bringing in is somebody that they're motivated to coach, and at the same point, vice versa, you're also kind of making sure that what we're bringing in is something that we think is, got a chance to develop and grow, instead of like the same old, like, let's go with that veteran over there because he's been there, done that. I'm like, well, this young guy sure looks like he could really develop. So it's that blend back and forth that you have with your head coach. So yeah, is there somebody that gets the final say? Absolutely. Does it usually mean it's collaborative? Absolutely. Like, when I made the trade to go get Levante David, it wasn't like Greg Schiano was like, hey, I don't really like this guy. Like, let's not go do that. I was like, heck, I'm going to go give up picks to go get a guy. Are we all good on this? And Greg's like, yeah, let's go. And so it's that collaborative thing. So I don't think Aaron Glenn being there early is going to mess up the apple cart in terms of, the big apple. But at the same point, like what I did there, maybe that was going to happen. No. So I think the big thing is, talking to Aaron Glenn, I think the interesting thing would have been with the 33rd team is, what is your plan for quarterback? Like, he has to have a plan. You won't take this job unless you already kind of have a sense. Now, it might be, hey, I just want to talk to Aaron and kind of get a sense of where he is. I just don't know where Woody Johnson is, right? And so I think that's a big piece of it as well. But I think it's nice to bring Aaron Glenn home. I thought they were going to go offense. They do go defense. Hard to disagree with Aaron Glenn. A lot of success. Former player. Feels like a guy that you can certainly be comfortable bringing into the front of the room, because he's done that with the defense for so long already in Detroit. So everything feels really good about the hire. It's just, the hardest thing to do is find the quarterback of the future, and they don't have that.
How'd that Levante David trade work out for you?
Yeah, it was good. He's still going. It was a good one. I'm so proud. He's so underrated. It's sad. He's so underrated in the NFL. It should be a gold jacket easy.
Hey, what a great move by you, bringing that guy. I think he should be a Hall of Famer one day. A really astute move that you guys made back in the day. What about the Raiders and the move they made? So they clean out the head coaching spot again. Antonio Pierce is gone. Tom Telesco was the GM, only there for 1 year. He's gone. They bring in John Spytek as the new GM there. So still waiting on the head coach, one of the 4 vacancies currently that are there around the NFL. What do you make of this move? And does this signal anything to you when you bring in a Spytek? Is there a guy you think that he might be leaning towards there in the desert? Or is this really a wide open crapshoot?
I think it's a little bit wide open. Number one, very happy for John. truly a great guy. And anybody that's been around John Spivak knows, that, and I'm sure Raider fans are like, great, he's a great guy. Can he pick players, right? That's what really matters. But I'm really happy for him. I mean, this is a really good guy. He's waited his turn. He's been working a long time behind the scenes, and now he gets a shot. He goes out and interviews, and I'm not surprised. Look, Tampa Bay has done a good job. Tom Brady's left, and they continue to make the playoffs. That is not easy to do, regardless of, you kick the tires of Baker Mayfield, and those tires would look good. Now they look great. Like, it was a huge decision. So, and there's other pieces on that puzzle. You can look at just this last year in terms of the draft class. Like, they're finding players, and I think that's what the Raiders are looking for, is someone to do that. Then obviously someone to help them with the search. I don't tie somebody in Tampa right to this job. I mean, the name was Liam Cohen, as everybody knew. But I don't tie anybody else but that to Tampa. But John's got certainly his tentacles out there in the National Football League and through college, and he's going to have to hurry it up. I'm afraid that's the hard part. But if you're thinking about being an assistant GM, or thinking about your assistant GM, or you're thinking about being a GM, you should already start be working on that list. And any of you guys that are listening that aren't working on that list, and you're in the front office of clubs, you should always be kind of pretending in your mind, what if I ever got a shot? Who would I go with? Who would my coordinators? Like, you should always be thinking that, and I'm sure John is doing that. I think we'll see a lot of information real quick here, as we'll see some more coaches come through the pipeline there.
I want to get into that a little bit as the program goes today. What's going on with Liam Cohen? It looks like he's going to go back to his old role in Tampa as the OC there, which is a stroke of genius. Go interview there in Jacksonville. We'll get into those tentacles, maybe why he's not going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars head coach. But then you go back to Tampa, you lose a GM, but at least you keep your coordinator there if you're Todd Bowles in company there in Tampa. So some of that stability looks like it's going to stay there. And you're right, Cohen all of a sudden became that hot commodity, possibly for the Raider job, possibly for the Jaguar job. Looks like now he is entrenched back as the OC in Tampa Bay. But when we do come back, and we're going to get to those, break down the two title games here before we're done with the show, but I do want to get to Jacksonville and what is going on in Duval, because not only now are they looking for a head coach, which we already knew about on Monday, now they're looking for a GM as well, as they say goodbye to Trent Baalke. So many tentacles. Mark, you're the perfect person to discuss this list. So come on back here, everybody. We'll discuss further here on the GM Show.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
We continue the GM Shuffle presented by DraftKings and VSiN. Dave Ross alongside our GM, Mark Dominik. Mark, I was talking about as we were going to break, the Jaguars. What are they doing? They get rid of Trent Baalke this week. And this, of course, on the heels of getting rid of Doug Peterson at the end of the season. Now, I don't know that we're surprised that Trent Baalke is gone. I think we're surprised that they let Trent Baalke begin the new coach negotiations, if you will. And then that didn't work out. And now Trent Baalke is gone. What are they doing in Jacksonville? What is Shad Khan looking for? If it's not Baalke, it's not Peterson, maybe it's Robert Saleh again, but this looks like a mess right now organizationally.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good at all, right? I mean, if you really just take an outsider's look into the situation, it tells me that maybe Shad Khan was not happy with the way the search was going with Trent, that he was frustrated with who was coming in, or that they were missing out on players or coaches. Maybe there's whispers or rumors or stated facts like, I don't want to come in to be the head coach with Trent Baalke. I don't know, but that's a real possibility. Some of these coaches say, hey, look, I want somebody else to be the GM. I don't want to go there. And so those two things certainly feel like the reason. I mean, again, clearly Shad Khan at the end of the season felt like he was going to keep Trent around. And I said this a long time ago. People kept saying that, this was the greatest Jacksonville roster that's ever been assembled, right? And as I said, I think he got conned. Shad Khan got conned. I'm doing it again. 2 segments, 2 alliterate. This has been fantastic. I don't know what. No, but I mean, it's really, it feels like, I mean, Brian Thomas today is going to the Pro Bowl. I mean, that's their first round pick. I mean, there's good players in Jacksonville. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's just everybody's like, what do I want to do with Trevor Lawrence, things like that. I think there's other things that are underlying. And I have a feeling there was frustration from Mr. Khan that he was like, why is this search going so slow? Or why are we not getting, why aren't we the more popular date and consider this roster? And maybe started really looking at it going, maybe this roster isn't what I think it is. Or again, the more likely it is maybe Robert Saleh is the guy. And Robert Saleh's like, I've got a guy. Like, I'm not coming unless this. I mean, Liam Combs had a chance, but, decided to turn it down, get that big extension and get the raise. And so a lot of frustration, I would think, for Jaguar fans, and certainly frustration in Jaguars ownership. Like, it's not like this is what they want to do. This is not how they want to run their business whatsoever. I'm certain of that. But I think the disappointment, I think the main one is should have all been done day one. I don't wish anything on Trent Baalke's family. It's nothing easy about what he's going through right now. But the reality is, I think that there's, it would have been nice to have another voice in the building to sit there and say, really look at the big picture here, and maybe you need to reset the whole thing. And now they are. It's just late in the party.
So it looks like Robert Saleh is going to be that guy again to go back to Jacksonville, have those conversations later on this week with Shad Khan. Does Shad have your number on speed dial, Mark? Because they might need a GM here to really help things out here before we get to the April draft.
The interim GM, right? It was just the interim GM for like 2 weeks. That might be it. I know Tony probably better than I know his dad. That's for sure.
We'll see what they decide to do. I'm just saying, I think if I was Shad Khan or Tony, I'd be calling you. That's for sure. The Vikings did agree to an extension with their head coach and Kevin O'Connell. We had heard rumors maybe floated out there. Maybe, is he available for trade? Like, what? Kevin O'Connell? No, Vikings put an end to that discussion there. Obvious, right? 3 years. He's done a really good job. Resurrected the career of Sam Darnold. We'll see what he does now if it's J.J. McCarthy going forward. But I don't know that there's anybody you trust more with the offense than you do KOC.
No, I mean, this is an easy one. The only trade rumor I think was maybe, and I don't know who his agent is, so I'll tread softly, but maybe the agent started to throw that around. Is like, let's see how many people would want to trade for him to see how good this player is, or do we want to get this extension done? So this is not a surprise. I mean, Vikings fans would have revolted, right? I mean, I got a lot of people that still live up in the Minnesota area, and I am certain that having texts and exchanges with them that they were like, this is our guy, this is our coach, this is who we want to be, and this is what we're going to have for a long time. And I think they feel like they've got, that offensive play caller that's going to be there for a decade. I think they really feel like they finally got the coach of the future and the now. And so that's exciting. Happy for him. But this was a no-brainer. This was nothing but how do you get it worked out? And happy for KOC. He's done a great job with that team and certainly, obviously, a frustrating end to the season. But you can't dispute what he did during the season. Really a strong season.
It kind of has a little bit of that Sean Payton feel in Denver when he got there and he said, well, I'll go get Bo Nix and it'll work because it's Sean Payton. And I feel like that's KOC. If it's not Sam Darnold, they do go to J.J. McCarthy. I think the Vikings immediately, the fan base goes, benefit of the doubt. Kevin O'Connell. I'll trust that pairing in Minnesota. So Viking fans, he's not going anywhere. Cowboy fans. Okay. I don't know where to begin. Well, it looks like Brian Schottenheimer now all of a sudden has emerged as the leader in the clubhouse to be the new head coach to replace Mike McCarthy. Remember, he was already on the staff of Big Mike. So that's why it's a little bit perplexing to me that, like, if you go to Brian, which is great, I'll be rooting for the guy. I hope he does a wonderful job. He's been around the league. We all know who his dad is and what he's meant to the NFL. But, like, to me, if you're moving on from Mike, are you really moving on from Mike if you go to Brian Schottenheimer? Like, this is a guy that was groomed, if you will, for this role by Mike McCarthy.
No, you're not moving on much from Mike, but you are changing up maybe the voice that leads the room, right? The new person in front of the podium. I mean, assuming that Zimmer stays on, that's the ball is that's covered. We're good. We're all on there. And so you can go here and say, look, I don't want to change a lot of stuff. And I think that's where when everybody kept saying Prime, I was like, I don't see that happening for two reasons. Number one, like we talked about, he doesn't, Jerry does not love to hire the coach that's going to be, bigger than he is. And that's not a shout out Jerry Jones, just what he's done. Like, that's just history, and at the same point, Coach Prime's not going to want to coach against his son in the National Football League. I don't believe that. I truly don't believe that. I think the only job he would take to be a head coach is if he has the opportunity to coach his son. I don't think he wants to ever game plan against his son in the NFL, and I don't blame him for that. Like, that's a weird thing that's very rare for anybody even to consider or see. So I get it. Like, that's why Prime's not doing it, in my opinion. I know he's all Colorado, but I think that's the real reason. If Dallas had the number one pick, I think we might be in a different conversation, but they don't. So what do, you make sure that this boat, this vessel, whatever it is, this team, this offense doesn't go off the rails. You don't want to reset everything and go, okay, now right guard, right tackle, tight end, receiver, we call this play now this instead of that. And This is, the way that we come into the building. This is the way we do this. Instead, you're like, okay, it's very similar, very safe. We're in a good spot here with a lot of the same verbiage, the same kind of system, and therefore we feel like we're going to get the production once we get this team healthy again. So I get the Brian Schottenheimer for sure. Saw him in the offseason, said hi to him a little bit. He's it's important. This is a great opportunity. And so if he gets the job, I think that I'm not big. I mean, that's why Kellen Moore was interviewing, right? I mean, it was like, how do we get continuity within this building to make sure it stays the same? And they've done that. And now if they can close it on Brian, it's a great opportunity for Brian Schottenheimer. My first job was in Kansas City with the Chiefs. His dad was the head coach and just undervalued. I mean, I know the postseason didn't go the way we all wanted to in Chief Kingdom, things like that. But what a phenomenal head coach. And Brian has a lot of those characteristics.
Well, you stole my next question because I covered his dad in D.C. He was there for 1 year, and he's the guy that would come into our office when I worked at Fox 5 in D.C., and you look you right in the eye, shake your hand, and you watch his coaching style up close and personal, like I had the good fortune of doing. Like when I hear Schottenheimer, I go, yes, sign me up. If he's even close to being what his dad was as a coach. Are there similarities there? Because Marty was as no nonsense as they come. He's the tone setter. The coach is the tone setter. That's what dad was. Is Brian, does he have a lot of those same traits that Marty had?
Yeah, I think he does. I think he's Coach Schottenheimer. Like I thought so much of him when we did a coaching search back in 2012, 2013. Marty Schottenheimer was one of the coaches I brought in because I was like, he's that good of a coach. We talked to him about the opportunity in Tampa. It's how highly I regard him as a coach. And watching him just be able to handle, Marcus Allen and Derek Thomas and Joe Montana and Neil Smith and Dale Carter's. I mean, it was just like a who's who of different personalities. And Marty, to your point, was a very straightforward, matter of fact. You felt like you knew where you sat with him at all times. Brian might be a little bit more personable, not in a bad way, in a good way. Like he might be a little. Brian's not one just to go sit around. Let's go sit over here and just chat it up. Like that's not Brian Schottenheimer that I know. And so he's going to be more reserved, more like his dad, where he's going to sit back, he's going to observe the room. But he is a little bit more social, and I think in this day and age, that might be a good fit for the Dallas Cowboys. It might be good for Dallas in general. So again, it's not quite the same person, but there are absolutely traits. When you see him and talk to him, you'd be like, when you heard his last name Schottenheimer, you'd be like, oh, I get it.
Yeah, because when Dad spoke, he didn't speak all the time, but when he did, it's like the E.F. Hutton commercial back in the 80s. Like, when he speaks, we listen. That was the command that Marty had. I hope if Brian gets the job, I'll be rooting for a lot of the same traits, hopefully, that Dad had as a head coach. We mentioned Liam Cohen and had gone back to Tampa Bay. Is this also a feather in the cap for one Baker Mayfield? That, like, you saw what happened in Carolina with Dave Canales in year one. He goes down there after, quote-unquote, getting the credit for resurrecting Baker Mayfield's career. Now Cohen is almost like, no, I'd rather go back and coach Baker again. Like, this is a guy that was a number one pick, failed. Everybody's going to kick him around the league, stop. And now not only has he succeeded, but to the point where maybe a Liam Cohen, who could have been a head coach elsewhere, says, no, I'll go back and coach my guy Baker Mayfield. It's got to feel good if you're Baker, and certainly Todd Bowles as well, right?
Yeah, and I think having been around Baker Mayfield from Liam's perspective, I have a feeling he sees exactly how much energy and fire, how much he loves football, Baker Mayfield. And I think, if you're going to take a head coaching job in the National Football League, or you're going to coach a guy that you already know loves ball, has taken your team to the playoffs 2 years in a row, as you're kind of like working through the roster, it becomes one of those things like, is the grass greener in Duval? Is it really that much greener? Is it much better? I mean, I know it's Trevor Lawrence. They're both number one picks. But Baker Mayfield's outperformed Trevor Lawrence by far. And and so, I think this is kind of like Ben Johnson last year. Like Liam's like, hey, look, yes, that's a job available. But next year there might be 7 jobs that might be available. And I don't know if I'm going to get that job or not, but you certainly got yourself prepared because you got your extension. But you also get the pick of the litter next year possibly if you have another successful season. And therefore, that might be even a more interesting situation or scenario than where you sit in Jacksonville and say, what's missing on Trevor Lawrence? Because at this point, you have to start thinking there's something missing. I don't know what it is, but there's something missing. I don't know if it's a love meter of the game. Sometimes that can fall into the trap, but that's what it starts to feel like. Not that he doesn't like playing football, but does he live it? That's a big question I'm starting to wonder coming out of Jackson if that's what's making that job not quite as attractive.
And no questions about that with Baker Mayfield in Tampa. So to your point, maybe that's an easy decision there if it's Lawrence or if it's Baker Mayfield. All right, when we come back, let's start breaking down those title games. That's next here on the GM Show.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
We are back on the GM Shuffle. Dave Ross alongside Mark Dominik as we break down these title games. Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. We're already there, Mark, as we get to the AFC and NFC title game. Let's start off with the NFC game. That's the first game on the board on Sunday in Philadelphia. We saw this open up as 4.5-point favorites, immediately shot up to 6-point favorites here for the Eagles, which surprises me a little bit, not really knowing the health of one Jalen Hurts, okay? We saw at the beginning of that Rams game in the divisional round, he breaks off the big, long touchdown run, kind of kickstart the day, and then Saquon does the rest. But since then, he took a big shot at the end of the first half, had to go to the blue medical tent for that, and then suffered the big knee injury that had to require a brace being put on his knee. Are you surprised that everybody's like, yeah, Philadelphia, no problem. They're going to roll on Sunday against the Commanders? Because if Jalen Hurts isn't Jalen Hurts, I start to worry about how effective their offense can be if you just try to take away 26 in Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, it sounds so good, doesn't it, Dave? If you just take away 26, it's like, well, every defensive coordinator every week has been like, we just need to stop 26. And every week 26 has been like, not today, maybe next week, right?
Right.
And I don't know how that doesn't stay the same. I mean, I guess, again, I agree with you. The goal is to absolutely try to limit at least the production, stop the big chunk play, stop the huge touchdown like we saw last week, or we see like about every week we get the 50, 60, 70-yard touchdown. That can't happen in this game. I think that'll be too much of a momentum slide. I agree that Jalen banged up, certainly limited in what he can participate in and what he can do. Sunday's coming quick. I mean, it's already Thursday, and that's not that many days away. But the reality is, I never was surprised this number would shoot up. I always thought it might actually get all the way to 6.5.
Wow.
I think that's in that really weird, like, the upset special kind of the zone where you're like, you're looking at the Commanders going, geez, I don't know. You tease that thing around, and that's a lot of points in the National Football League. But I think a lot of people feel good, but I think everybody feels so much better about where the Eagles sit right now in terms of what they can do offensively with running the football and controlling the game, and they can do that. And I think they could sit there and say, hey, let's tone it down. If Jalen's not 100%, we're absolutely gonna, like, Saquon, 32 carries, here it comes, buddy. Like, this could be your game. This is how to win this thing. Both teams come in a little banged up. We talked earlier on Nakobe Dean. Obviously, he's no longer with them out there at linebacker, a fast, sideline sprinter. Can really make a lot of plays. Sadly, he's not there. The bigger blow is Sam Cosmi, I think, for the Washington Commanders. Huge, right? I mean, yes, we've talked to other people before where they're like, you can get through with one guy if he's missing. Well, you're going against Jalen Carter. That's not just one guy. That's one beast in front of you.
It's the wrong guy.
I think that's a big piece. Because here's the thing. I think, and a lot of people have talked about this, so I'm not the first one, but ideally against Jaden Daniels, you don't blitz, right? Because you don't let him go crazy and let time, as he blitzes and he pulls away from it, suddenly the receivers have more time down the field, or the tight end or the back. And then Jaden, of course, has found ways to make plays. Like, he's been very good with his vision as a rookie. He's been phenomenal. And so I think the hidden thing here that when I look at this game, and, I love Tyler Biotic, the starting center, former Cowboy. But yeah, I know. But losing Sam Cosmi next to him, and you've got Jalen Carter, because Jalen can power you or, outquick you, you don't have to blitz as much now, because I think you're going to win the middle of the pocket. It's more like you've got to contain him, right? Because you realize the pocket's now going to get pushed. Like, if I'm the advanced scout, I'm the way I'm thinking this is like, the other D tackle, we're just going upfield, and Jaden's going this way. So now my ends got to rush wide, but not up deeper than the quarterback. It's going to be discipline, I think. But I think the Eagles can have that discipline without having to bring the extra player. And now Jaden's like, I found him, and boom, he throws the ball, and suddenly it's a first down, or it's a big play, or it's a touchdown. That's going to be the thing. So I think that's the biggest piece as I walk into it. So, we got a few minutes left before I have to make my prediction. But as I watch this game, I think that those two pieces are really huge. I love the Jaden Daniels story. Who doesn't?
Oh, it's amazing.
Except for probably private Eagles, the Giants, Cowboys. I probably don't love the Jaden Daniels story. Maybe the NFC or whatever it is. But I mean, it's so great to see a guy that works so hard have so much success so early. And sounds like from everything you hear through Cliff Kingsbury, through Coach Quinn, guys earned every penny of it and earned every bit of it and owns the locker room as well in a great way. I mean, even this week, he's like, I'm not thinking about being the first rookie to do that. I'm just trying to win games, right? It's so perfect, and it's great to see a young man be a leader this quick in his career and have the success he's had.
I'm one of those that you could count in as not enjoying the Jaden Daniels success story as a Cowboy backer. But you're right. Personally, it's an amazing story. And by all accounts, from everybody we've talked to, including Rick Doc Walker, he's done exactly what you said. He's earned it. He's earned that trust in the locker room. This was not something that was given to him day one. He's earned it by being one of the guys and going out and working each and every week with Dan Quinn, with Cliff Kingsbury. And all of a sudden, here they are on the precipice of going to the Super Bowl. 14 wins. It would take a 15th one, obviously, to get there. There's no way we could have seen this coming. I love the way you approached it, though, philosophically, that if it's almost like the Lions, they were so aggressive in their defensive approach, it allowed for Jaden Daniels to beat them. That you want to almost use, you don't want to be aggressive, you want to be passive aggressive against Jaden Daniels. If you can do that system, kind of mush rush a little bit, contain, as you mentioned, put extra guys back there in coverage, that might confuse them, right? That could confuse them more than pressure.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what you want to do. You want to show a lot of different ways that you've, during the season, I mean, I think, obviously, during the season, you've shown different exotic blitzes all the way through the season, whether it's double A gap or something from the outside, maybe a corner, whatever it's been, a slot. So you're going to want to show those fronts to Jaden, but then you want to bail out of them. You want him to start thinking, okay, this ball's coming. Oh, no, wait, they didn't come, right? But I'm going to show him certain blitzes that I've shown all season long to make him think that okay, it's coming hot, and it doesn't. And that's the way to do it. And then you still can rush forward because you could still get pressure on him. And I think that's the important part when you look at this is I think because of what's happened in the inside interior offensive line, I think you can still now he knows he's going to feel it coming into his face. And you don't have to be Superman on the outside. You just have to be smart man on the outside, right? That's what you have to play. You have to play smart football. But then you keep giving him looks. And once in a while, you're going to send a guy. You have to keep him honest because he's going to sit there and go, they're not coming at all. I got that now. Okay. You're going to keep him honest, but I think you attack less. You play more passive in terms of like being aggressive, but you show the looks. So to make sure that maybe you bait him into a throw that maybe he's thinking it's going to come through, or you're just throwing off his accuracy a little bit. Now he's like, oh, wait, no, he's pumping out. I got to rethink it. Because he's been so good at making decisions, not really turning the ball over, and certainly taking advantage when he sees a shot. And he's not afraid to take that shot. So all those things being said, I think that's why it's going to be interesting to see how the Eagles attack. But from my perspective, I would think the coaches would look at it and go, we should be able to win inside. Therefore, I don't think we're going to have to blitz a lot. And therefore, we can put more guys in defense to hopefully limit his production as a passer.
Those coaches that you're alluding to would be Vic Fangio, who's seen everything there is to see from a defensive side of the ball. And then Cliff Kingsbury on the offensive side here for the Commanders, who maybe that's why we still have 4 vacancies. Maybe they're waiting to talk to Cliff, who knows, for one of those openings. But on the surface, I'd say, advantage Fangio, right? But is that a closer matchup? Has Cliff evolved in the way he's calling these games here for Jaden Daniels in year one from what we saw in Arizona and Kyler Murray?
Well, in terms of experience, check Vic Fangio experience. But the problem is not everybody gets to go play with Jaden Daniels, right? I mean, that's the same guy as we've talked about before. Nick Saban said last year, there's no answer for this guy, right? The NFL's like, right, there is answer for this guy. And Vic Fangio's watching tape going, dang it, how did he do that, right? So, I mean, all those things come together. So, when you put the package together, you appreciate that Cliff's got so much experience calling plays, being a head coach, different levels. Different quarterbacks, all the different guys he's worked with and have been successful. And you got Vic, who's like, his luggage is full of knowledge as well as everything he brings all over the place. But you got the quarterback. And anytime you've got the quarterback, you've got the edge. So as much as Vic has the experience, I give the edge to Cliff because he's got the secret weapon, and that's called Jaden Daniels.
Wow. On the other side of the ball, when you look at the head-to-head matchup here, we got Kellen Moore, who also rumored potentially to be for the Cowboy job again, the old OC there in Dallas. And now his third stop after not exactly having it work out with the Chargers last year, 1 year stint there against Joe Witt Jr. You mentioned that Tyler Biotic's coming over with Dan Quinn. They brought Dorrance Armstrong. They brought a lot of Cowboys now that we're seeing with the Commanders having a lot of success. And Joe Witt Jr. is one of those guys as the first-year defensive coordinator. I heard him say, hey, if Jalen Hurts runs, we're going to treat him like a running back. We're going to hit him. Like, he's aggressive, man. Like, he's aggressive, kind of like Dan Quinn. What about that chess match between a first-year DC against a guy in Kellen Moore who's on his third team as an OC?
Well, again, I look at, here again, you kind of look at the pieces of the puzzle. You say, what are you going to do to solve this 26 Saquon Barkley problem? I think that's great. I think you want to sit there and say to the media and stuff, hey, look, if he blocks outside the pocket, he's a running back. He should know that. We know that. And you're saying that because Jalen Hurts has had a concussion. And so you don't think you're just talking to Jalen Hurts. You're not talking to fans and like, oh, yeah, I love what he's saying. No, you're doing that because you want to make sure Jalen Hurts hears the fact that we're going to knock you if you go outside the pocket. It's just the reality. That's what we're allowed to do. And so we will take advantage of that if that's what you do. So I think it's just one of those, chess pieces of play that I think I like. Harder for, I guess, Witt. I mean, Kellen Moore gets to, decide whether he's going to, run or pass. And every time he runs the ball, he gets to hand it off to what could be the greatest single season in rushing history and receiving history that we've ever seen in the history of the NFL. And that there might be 2 more games to go. He may break it this weekend. So I go the advantage here on the offensive side because you have such an important piece of the puzzle in Saquon Barkley that, hey, it's working. That's good. And it seems the nice thing about it is, the A.J. Browns aren't frustrated, right? They're handling the receiving core isn't getting to eat a lot, but they're not mad about it because they understand this is how we're getting fed through victories instead of through catches, and they'll take that. And I love that they have that mentality in Philadelphia.
Yeah, we didn't think that would be the case, right? I think AJ would be all upset about it, Devonta Smith. No, those guys are okay with it as long as you're winning, and right now they are winning. All right, we've got about 45 seconds. Final prediction time in the NFC. Who will be the first representative to go to the Super Bowl in New Orleans?
Yeah, I mean, I can envision the end of the game, right? And I can see Dan Quinn smiling and hugging players and just being like, this is amazing, Daniels. And yet I think Saquon Barkley is going to be on that stage hosting the trophy. And so I'm going to go Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly. I can even spell Eagles if you need me to spell it out loud. But, yeah, I'm going Eagles. What do you do? What do you got for us?
I'm going with the Commanders. I'm not getting off this hype train right now with Jaden Daniels. I think you're right. I don't know that they have an answer for him. But if Saquon Barkley goes for 2 bills, it's probably going to be Philly. Can they limit him? Easier said than done. But I'm going to go with that dream story in D.C. For one more run. All right, when we come back, let's break down the AFC. That is next here on the GM Show.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
It is the GM Shuffle presented by DraftKings and VSiN. Dave Ross alongside Mark Dominik here. Let's get to the AFC side of things as we broke down the NFC in the last segment. Bills, Chiefs, it's deja vu all over again, as Yogi Berra once said way back in the day. We're going to see it again. I don't know if this is what the Buffalo Bills want to see in the Kansas City Chiefs, but they are going to get them again. Lost to him in the title game a couple years ago. Lost to him in the divisional round again last year. That was in Orchard Park in New York. So if there's one team they have not been able to get through, it's Kansas City. If you're Buffalo, Mark, and you gave them truth serum, are they like, yeah, if we get to the Super Bowl, we want to go through Kansas City and prove to ourselves that we can actually beat 15, whether it's in KC or anywhere else?
Yeah, I think so. I know it sounds weird. You're like, well, I'd rather have played Houston, right? I'd rather, played at home and played. I actually think that this is something that they see in front of them. I think once they beat the Ravens, they're starting to look at this thing as like, okay, we got to take the top dog down, and we'll take the top dog down in the NFC too. I think that's the way their mindset is, and I think because they were able to pull that game out, as we talked about on Monday, the clean game that they played in Buffalo, that allowed them to say, hey, look, we're good, because I think we just got through the toughest opponent in the AFC, in my opinion. And I love the Chiefs, right? I love them. That's where I started, where I got my career, family. They listen to this podcast, they're going to text me, and I'll get in trouble for this. But it's like, I think Buffalo is just a team that's like, hey, look, next man up. And I think the Chiefs are like, great, we got Buffalo. We know what to do with them. We beat them every time. Like, Patrick pulls the play out, and we got him. Kelsey's going to make something happen. We'll kick a field goal late. We're going to win the game. And it's just been our season that way. So this is a great matchup. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch this thing unfold in Arrowhead. It still looks like it's just going to be cold, but no bad weather, no big wind or anything like that. So I think that's going to be classic NFL football at its finest. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch for everybody to kind of see, especially when you already know who the NFC team is, like who's playing who. and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch that. But this is a really good across the board matchup. And I think for what you asked, the question is, if I'm going to go to the Super Bowl, I want to make sure I beat Kansas City because they've been in this conference champion 7 years in a row. And I want to be the first one to knock them out of it.
Think about what you just said, right? 7 years in a row, the Chiefs are playing in the title game. It's insane. And it gets glossed over because we've just, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo. We've taken it all for granted to a degree here with the greatness that we're witnessing there. I feel like they haven't played, and I'm sure they would vastly disagree with the statement. I feel like they haven't played a significant game in quite some time. Maybe that game in Orchard Park in the regular season, which was their first regular season loss. They were undefeated at that point because they had everything wrapped up so early. They shut down the starters. They got, obviously got shut out in the last week of the season against Denver. That didn't really matter. Didn't play the cleanest of games to get by Houston a week ago. Can they hit another level, or is this the level that they're at is good enough to win a third Super Bowl in a row?
No, I think they're good. I mean, they've been able to pull out games. Some have been magical for them where mistakes happen to the other club or, poor decisions or whatever it is, that they found ways to get on top of it. Look, when you've got that record in the one loss, two losses, it's an amazing season overall when you kind of really look at what they put together. And they've been just good enough every week. Sometimes they've been better, but sometimes they've just been just good enough. And I think that's been the Chiefs' mantra all season is like, hey, we're good enough to beat anybody, as you can see all the way through the season. And we might have lady luck on our side a little bit, but we still were in position to be able to win the game because of it. And that's the important part. I think the nice thing for Kansas City is it feels like, Jalen Warren back out or Watson back out there, cornerback. That's a big piece of the puzzle that they got back, who played 60, 70% of the snaps on defense last week as his first time back since he got hurt early in the season. So that's a nice piece coming back. And it feels like their overall health is really pretty good. And so I think that's got to feel good. And I think that's what I like about this game is that we've got two what feel like really healthy teams coming together to play each other to say who's the best. And, that's getting Von Miller to the finish line and feeling like he's in great shape in a conference championship game. It's, Jalen Watson coming back and being out there cornerback because that was one piece that they desperately needed to get back on the football field. So I like where that sits up, but it's a game where I think where Kansas City, as you talked about it, they have found ways to win games all season long. I think it's enough because I think this magic number is at 28-30. I said it, I think, with you on Monday a little bit. If you can get to 20, 30 points on Kansas City, you probably are going to get the victory. That's where Buffalo's got to shoot or go for. I think that's going to be kind of the magic number because Kansas City has hit the 30s, but not consistently. And I think, against the Buffalo defense, it's not going to be easy to get to 30 again this week.
I can't believe I'm going to ask this question. Is the Bills' offense good enough to put up 30 against that Chiefs defense? Because we know how good Spags is. We know how good, say Chris Jones is. You mentioned Watson, getting him back at corner. They've got pieces, but you still have Josh Allen on the other side. He's going to make the Clear Shakirs, and he's going to make the Dawson Knoxes and all those tight ends and receivers that might be marginal guys. He elevates those guys, it feels like, to a next level. Is the surrounding cast, including James Cook, are they good enough to potentially put 30 or more up against that Chiefs defense?
I truly think they are. I really do. And as much as, George Karlaftis has had a great playoff run, right? He's season, I should say. And he's really kind of, I guess the best way with George is he's really come on late towards the end of the season. Certainly had a good game against the Houston Texans. And I think that's been another piece for the Kansas City Chiefs defense. It's like, he's powering because George, he's going to power his way to the quarterback with the most effort you're going to ever see. So they're a powerful team, but they're not a fast team, in my opinion. That's where the Chiefs aren't quite as fast as they are as strong, especially up front. And I think that with the legs of Josh, with the legs of Cook, I think that's going to be enough where they're going to be able to extend drives and move the ball down the field and get that third down and maybe hit Dalton Kincaid in a big throw, those kind of things, because they have the two tight end that can always work. And I think those two guys are really good together. And you can keep defenses kind of in check. Like, are you going to go heavy? Because I got these two tight ends. So you might want to bring that safety back in here or bring another corner in because I got these two tight ends. I'm detaching them both, and I'm going to go at you and see what you can do. So it creates a good mismatch. And that's why I think that's why they drafted Dalton Kincaid when they already had Dawson Knox, who was having good production. I think all those are true. And then I think, I don't know, I've been crazy through this whole thing. Maybe Amari Cooper actually gets targeted more than once. Maybe Amari Cooper is the guy that's kind of like the secret weapon here. Like, okay, we have to really unleash we haven't really thrown the ball to him at all. It doesn't mean that he's not a good player, and Amari's been handling it really good. But I feel like maybe we're going to see more Amari Cooper finally this week, where you're like, let's go, let's spread these guys out, and we can run downhill with Josh. You can use his legs to get first downs. We can use Cook on quick screens or draws, and then we can also just go vertical on these guys pretty hard and beat them and be able to get in scoring position so they can get to that 30-point.
You mentioned Shakir's the guy that gets all the yak, right? After the catch, he's doing a lot of screen game here. It feels like Mac Hollins always has one play a game that kind of stands out, but it's just like one play. And then if you get you mentioned the two tight ends, how good they are. James Cook's had an unbelievable year. We'd be talking more about it if it wasn't for the year the King had in Baltimore and certainly Saquon Barkley in Philadelphia, but he's been spectacular. So they have all these weapons, but it feels like Josh, he's very liberal in the approach. He gives it to everybody, and maybe that's why we're not seeing what we thought. I think that, Amari Cooper is going to be that 4 or 5 catch guy. It's because he spreads it out, right? There's not one guy you can key on in this offense.
He's deliberate, right? He's making a decision pre-snap. He knows where he thinks he wants to go with the football, and he's going to try to see if that thing can open up instead of forcing the ball where he's like, I got to throw it to this guy, got to throw it to that guy. And I think that's the difference. Patrick's like that too, right? But Patrick and whatever this Kelsey magic is that keeps happening where, people forget to cover him in the field. Like, that's Travis Kelsey, isn't it? Like, let's make sure we stop
there he goes.
And I think the big thing here is you got to stop the tight ends in Kansas City. I think that's what you have to do if you're the Buffalo Bills. And that's not going to be easy either because no one really stops Noah and no one really stops Travis very much. And so I think that's the hidden piece of the puzzle for the Buffalo Bills where, okay, Kansas City's a problem. Andy Reid loves the screen games. He calls them at the right time. Patrick's obviously his ankle looks right now at 100%, which is rare for this time of year. For Patrick Mahomes, it seems like maybe that's a good thing for other teams. I have no idea because every time he hurts his ankle, they seem to win. So, I think that you've got to slow down the tight ends in Kansas City. And if you can stop or slow down or really marginalize them, let them pick away with Kareem Hunt, let them pick away with Pacheco. But then that's, again, if you stop the tight ends there, and I know Worthy on the reverses and the shots down the field, I get it. Then I think that's what you're going to limit Kansas City to be able to get the 30 points. If they get the tight ends working, then Kansas City has a legit shot of getting to the max points what they need to get. So if I'm Buffalo, that's all I'm thinking about. How do I stop these two guys? How do I make it miserable for them? Beat them up at the line of scrimmage. Try to beat them up before they get into their routes as much as you can. And quite frankly, one of my scouts and one of my coaches should be evaluating the officiating crew to kind of get a sense of how much can we get away with in this game in terms of that back end of the officiating crew. So that you should be looking at if you're not.
If they allow it to be sticky, is that advantage Kansas City? We allow it to bump and run a little bit, right? That's what they want.
Home field. You talk to anybody at the Houston Texans, home field, Kansas City, baby. It's more that you're not just playing the stadium. You're playing the officials, allegedly. So, and I get it. But, yeah, no, if it's a sticky game, I think that absolutely will help Kansas City.
And back to 15. I mean, he's still Patrick Mahomes. He's still the Michael Jordan of this generation, right? That I know people are, you're going to bet against Patrick Mahomes in a title game. Good luck. But he's still that guy, right? Even though the numbers this year have not been the typical Patrick Mahomes numbers we're used to, he doesn't care about that. Again, he just cares about who has more points at the end of the day. And it's normally, 15 times it was Kansas City.
I mean, it's a three-peat. I mean, they have a chance at a three-peat. That's incredible to say that, right? As much as we're going through the football and what, we see on Jaden Daniels on the other side of the ball or what we see with Saquon Barkley and some of these amazing things, to have a chance to play this weekend, and if you win, you got a chance to repeat in the NFL. I mean, it's crazy enough to 7 championship games, but to have a chance to win 3 Super Bowls in a row, it makes me quickly think of an old coach where I first got in the league. His name was Jimmy Ray. Great football coach for years. I think Jimmy Ray probably coached over 50 years. He never got a Super Bowl, never got one. And coached and had coached on great teams and was a great guy and a great man and a great mentor. And he never got one. It's hard to get that ring, and the fact that Kansas City has a chance for 3 is amazing.
Yeah, we've never seen it in the history of the Super Bowl era, to your point, Mark. And here they are on the precipice of going back with that opportunity to win a third in a row. That being said, because you already gave the Eagles as one half of the equation, who's joining Philadelphia in the Super Bowl in New Orleans in 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to cut off the podcast. I think we're about to I can't get to it. No. Look, I'll stay with this as we finish this thing up, and looking forward to the games this weekend. I started the season saying the Buffalo Bills were going to win the Super Bowl. I am going to stay consistent with that. I've been on television and radio saying it from the beginning of the season. I thought this was a special season. As much as it hurts me in my Kansas City Chiefs days, I'm going Bills.
It's going to make my dad happy. I'm with you too, Mark. Let's go Buffalo. Bills Mafia, get this thing done. I do think they're going to get it done. Should be another classic on Sunday. Mark, always appreciate the insight. We'll do it again here on Monday on the GM Show.